Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone, and you're welcome to another dbrown Consulting webinar on Excel and Power BI. So we do this webinar every third Thursday of the month on Excel and Power BI Clinic, where we answer all your Excel and Power BI questions, especially the ones brought or sent in already earlier by you. So you're all welcome. I can see quite a few of us coming in to the webinar. And so I'll just quickly introduce myself and then introduce how we're going to walk through this webinar today. I'm David, and I've been working with Excel for now like almost 22 years, and done quite a lot of stuff with Excel, financial modeling, and report automation. I'm also a consultant to the World Bank on all revenue modeling, so I do quite a lot of stuff on Excel. So we set up dbrown Consulting in about 10 years ago, and dbrown Consulting is the one sponsoring this webinar. And we're going to have fun today and going through quite a lot of interesting stuff you guys have sent already. So as I said, dbrown Consulting is the firm sponsoring the webinar. We do consulting, training, and outsourcing. Those are the key services that we offer. Outsourcing is more payroll outsourcing, so we manage payroll for large clients, and we do a lot of data analytics on the payroll. Consulting, we build financial models for deals, and then we use Power BI technologies, which is Microsoft's BI, self-service BI technologies, to automate reports for large clients. So we kind of go to your department, automate all your reporting, so that you have time, instead of copying and pasting into PowerPoint and having thousands of Excel files, you have time. You basically have time to instead of doing, sorry for that call, instead of doing lots of thousands and thousands of spreadsheets everywhere, you just need only one spreadsheet. In fact, today we're going to share a methodology for working efficiently. You'll see a methodology we use to work very efficiently, and maybe you can use that in your organization as well. So you could also join us on our Meetup group. We have a Meetup group online. So you have that on the screen. Our Meetup group is called Nigeria Modern Excel and Power BI User Group. So this Meetup group is free. So any events we hold here are free. And we just try and get sponsors to sponsor venues. We always try and sponsor speakers. And for example, this webinar is basically on the Meetup group, and you could join, you kind of have a reminder to join these webinars, these monthly webinars from that Meetup group. So go online to meetup.com and look for Nigeria Modern Excel and Power BI User Group. So that's a free user group. We also have a YouTube channel with quite a number of videos from all our old webinars. So you could go online to the YouTube channel and watch as many exercises or courses as you like. And there, for example, this webinar will probably be up next week on the YouTube channel. So how are we going to proceed today? We're just going to try and answer questions you already sent ahead. And then we do a general live Q&A, and then we have some bonus tips and tricks. But if you have any questions for me, you can obviously raise your hands. You can see there's a hand tool. There's a hand tool where you're viewing right now. So if you don't mind, just click on that hand tool so I know that we're all here. Click on the hand tool. Okay, I can see some of us clicking. Try and click on the hand tool so I know we're all attentive and you can hear me. Okay, some of us are clicking. That's good. So click on the hand tool. So you could get my attention by clicking on that hand tool. Another way you could get my attention is just to ask a question. So you just go into that question box or chat box and ask a question. So go ahead and just type a question into the chat box or the question box. Just type out a question. Okay. So just type out, let's type out a question so we know how to use these tools. Type out a question in the question box or the chat box. Okay, I can't see any questions coming in. Okay, I've seen a question. Ezenwa has asked, okay, how am I doing today? Thanks, I'm doing fine, Ezenwa. Thank you very much. Yeah, and so we know how to use our tools, right? So That's the question box. So you could type in a question, and I'll see that someone has asked a question, and I'll try and answer it. So it's going to be very interactive. Just ask your questions anytime you want to ask your questions. We'll try and finish this webinar before 10 o'clock. What I aim to do is finish by, let's say, 9:45, and then we can have 15 minutes of questions. All right, super. So any questions? Any questions so far? Okay. So your questions, the questions you guys sent ahead, I went ahead and did a word cloud like we always do. I did a word cloud of your questions, and these were the questions you asked. So based on the word cloud, I can see modeling popping out, I can see pivot popping out, power popping out. So I guess power pivot was popping out. Reporting, understanding, visualization, dashboard, data, function, skills, financial. So those are the keywords that were popping out. So based on what you asked, we usually just kind of reduce it to like 5. So we reduce it to like 5 core questions. So these are the 5 topics we're going to treat today. So the theme of today really is going to be a methodology for working smartly with Excel and Power BI. So that's the general theme of today. And based on that, data consolidation with Power Query. In fact, this question was asked last month. In the last month's webinar, we couldn't answer it. So we'll look at data consolidation with Power Query. Dashboards that show HR metrics at a click of a button. So probably with Power Query, we'll build a tiny dashboard and we'll see how we can automate it at the click of a button. Power Pivot setup and use. Victor asked that. He wants to know how to set up Power Pivot and its use. Intelligent and visual reporting. I guess we'll talk about that. Then someone's asking about mastering the art of match and index and match. For those that use VLOOKUP, let me ask a question. How many of us, what tools do we use in Excel? So I'm going to put up a poll right now. I want you to answer this poll. I want to see how proficient are you in using these tools. So which of these Excel tools and functions do you use proficiently? Just pick all that apply. So by the way, pivot table is different from Power Pivot. It sounds the same, but it's different. So pivot table is the one you know. Power Pivot is the one that uses a new language called DAX, and Power Query is the one that uses a new language called M. So I can see from the poll currently 88% or 89% of us like using VLOOKUP, or we think we're proficient in VLOOKUP. 56% of us are proficient with pivot tables. That's very impressive. 50% of us have used index and match. Interesting. Even 10% of us have used Power Pivot, which is also very impressive. So, we think we're proficient in using Power Pivot. Nobody has used Power Query, which makes today very appropriate for today's topic of focusing on Power Query today. Okay, interesting. So I'm going to close the poll now. Okay, nobody has used Power Query. Very few Power Pivots. Half of us Power Pivot table. A lot of us are VLOOKUP gurus, and half of us are index and match gurus. All right, that's nice. Okay, so I'm just going to close the poll. All right, cool. So, Power Query, data consolidation on Power Query. Before I go into Power Query, I would like to kind of tell us about how we work, how we work with Excel. There's quite a lot of inefficiency in how most of us work with Excel. So I want to give us a methodology for working with Excel, right? So I want to just share a very detailed methodology for how to work efficiently with Excel. Right, this is a statistic that we've seen. I'm just putting something on your screen right now. So a statistic we've seen is that 80% of our time is spent cleaning data. we spend it downloading data from SAP, downloading data from maybe some people send some Excel files by email to you. You clean it, you open it, you copy paste, and put it in one template, and you do lots and lots of things to just fill out your template so that you can get the data that you need to now put into slides, and then you present. 80% of our time is spent doing that. I don't know who agrees. Just put your hand up if you think that's kind of right. How much time you spend cleaning and getting data. Yeah? Yeah? Put your hands up if you think I'm right. Am I right? Am I wrong? What do you think? You can type out a question. Yeah? But that's the statistic I see. Now, the problem with this is that 80% of your time is spent doing something that can be automated. It can be automated if you change the way you work. Now, the key thing, or what you should be spending your time on really is this. You should be spending, which is what you're currently spending only 20% of your time on. You should be spending your time exploring and visualizing data. Yeah? So we spend so little time on doing this because we're quickly rushing to meet that deadline, to present and stuff like that. We don't really look at our data and say, okay, what exactly is this data trying to tell us? Not what our standard templates tell us. What is this data trying to tell us? If you dig deep into your data, you see what it's trying to tell you, and that way we could increase revenue and reduce costs. So that's the experience I see for most people. Who would like to share his experience? I'm going to put someone up on the mic. I'll kind of release your mic. If you want to share your experience, just put your hands up. I've released everybody's hands now. So put your hands up if you want to share an experience with all of us here. Anybody wanting to share an experience? Okay, Ezenwa wants to. So Ezenwa, I'm releasing your mic so you could introduce yourself and then share your experience. So this Ezenwa on the line.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Ezonwa. I head the performance analysis unit at AXA Mansard. What David just described for data analysis is actually quite true. The most challenge you get is cleaning up data. So you get data from the core business application in a particular format, and usually you need to sort that data, do a lot of VLOOKUP, use index and match to even get down to having a suitable table that you'll be able to use to do some analysis. And by the time you are done cleaning up data for all the products, for all the different scenarios you need to model or have a look at. If you do not have a ready template to help quickly process the data, you find yourself at a loss of time to even really analyze that data properly. And what tends to happen is you find out pointers. So most times meetings are done based on pointers. And so the most of the analysis you'll be able to do within the short available time will be to bring out pointers, but you haven't been able to do some in-depth analysis to be able to find out, what really those pointers are talking about. And sometimes the answer is even really in the data.
Yes, exactly.
But there's not enough time to even pull out that pointer. So you rely on experience and information.
So you rely on guessing. You rely on rule of thumb. You guess. You basically guess.
Yes.
Yes.
To be able to. Yes. Yes. That's my experience. Thank you.
All right, so thanks a lot, Ezema, for sharing. I think that's the experience of many people, and it's just not a Nigerian thing, really. This is a worldwide thing. Most people have that. Thank you very much for sharing, Ezema. Thank you. All right, so that's the experience we have. So now, how do we change this? So that's the key thing. Oh, okay. Oh, I'm going to share a slide for you guys. Anyway, okay. Well, this is usually at the end of the training. So anyway, anyone that attends the webinar is entitled to discounts. All you need to do is say, I attended a webinar, and you get a discount in most of our open trainings, okay? So financial modeling course, we have a financial modeling training this month, and you can check our open training calendar. So you could just send a mail to training@dbrownconsulting.net or go to 0700 training, and you'll get details of that. I'll share this again at the end of the webinar. So what I want to actually share with you is a methodology for working more efficiently in Excel so that we can stop spending that 80% of time doing things that don't add value. All right? So that's the key. That's what I want to share with you guys now. All right. So an efficient way of working with Excel. So what we've discovered is when building templates, reports, analysis, models in Excel, you only need 3 sheets. That's all you need, 3 sheets. And guess what? You do not need to save any Excel file in, maybe you have a folder where you're saving an Excel file in January, then another one in February, another one in March, another one in April. You're using Excel like a database. Excel is not a database. You have databases out there. You have your SAPs, your Access, your Oracle, whatever database you have out there. Ideally, what you should do is connect to that database. Get the data and analyze it. You don't need to make Excel become a database. That's where the problem starts. And when I say we need only 3 sheets, these are the 3 sheets I mean. The first sheet you will need, if you're working with Excel efficiently, is your data sheet. So that's the very first sheet, your data sheet, where your data resides. So that data sheet is what you're going to connect to connect to SAP, Facebook, wherever you get your data, even if it's Excel that has all your data dump. Connect to it and pull that data in. Once you pull that data into Excel, now you have the option, you can either pull the data into Excel or just simply connect to that data. And I'm going to show a demo of this very soon. So we use Power Query. That's what Power Query is for. Power Query is a new tool. It's free for anybody with Excel. If you have Excel 2010, Excel 2013, or Excel 2016, it is absolutely free. Yeah. So you just basically go to Microsoft's website and download it. It's an extremely, extremely powerful tool. So what this tool does is it automates the cleanup process. You know how you get data from different sources and clean it up? It automates that process. And we're going to have a look at how it will automate cleaning up data quite soon. So once you automate the cleanup process and then you connect to your data, the next sheet you need is your control sheet. So your control sheet, basically, what it does is it allows you to control the user experience. So one thing you have to know as an Excel user is Excel is almost a development platform. It's basically a development platform like other software. So think of yourself as a developer when you're using Excel. If you think of yourself as a developer, then you're going to develop some really wonderful Excel templates that just work all the time and they're fully automated. All your user needs to do is probably change the date he wants his report, and the report will just update. So that's the beauty of it. That's what your control sheet will do to kind of control the user experience and make it very easy. Then we have the report sheet. The report sheet uses data in your data sheet and all the controls you have in your control sheet to show reports in exactly how the user wants to see them. So so this is the methodology: data sheet, control sheet, report sheet. All right, so we are going to go into demo now and show you how this works. But before we do that, your data sheet itself needs to follow 7 rules. That's the most important thing, is your data sheet, and it must follow these 7 rules I've put up here. So when you pull your data and it's dirty, you need to clean it up so it follows these 7 rules. 1 row of headings, no empty columns, no empty rows, dates are in a single column, no totals or subtotals anywhere in your data. Remember, this is your data, not your report. It's your report that can have totals and subtotals. Your data should have no totals or subtotals at all. And then every unique data type or data category should have its own column. And then don't merge any cells and don't have any rogue data, around your table. Maybe to the right of your table you type okay or very good or stuff. You don't do that. You can do that in your report. All right, so these are your 7 golden rules. We're going to use these rules to do our demo. Okay? So let's quickly get to our demo. All right, so I'll go to our demo. Let's say I'm in Power Query. So right now I'm in Power Query and I need to basically pull in some data in here. All right, I need to pull in some data. So let me look for a candidate. Let's say I have some dirty data. I'm going to open a file that has data in kind of a dirty form. It's not looking good. So if you look at this data here, it's going to come up on your screen now. This data doesn't follow those rules. And I need to do analysis on this data. So can you just type what you think is wrong with this data? Just quickly type into the question box, what do you think is wrong with this data? Okay, some of us are typing. So just type what you think is wrong with this data. Can we do that? Okay, with the 3 sheets apply for financial statements and revenue accounting. So everyone is asking, with the 3 sheets apply for financial statements and revenue accounting? Yes, it depends on how complex your financial statement is. For example, what I've seen is some people do trial balance. You have a trial balance, and then you want to use that trial balance to create a P&L and a balance sheet and maybe cash flow statement. That trial balance basically becomes your data. That's your data. And that data should be fully automated. You have your data, so once you download your trial balance, you shall now automate your P&L and balance sheet automatically. You just automate it. So that data is your trial balance. Your report is your P&L balance sheet. That's your report. And then your control can work as it does. So can you also invoke Apple? I use Mac. Okay. Okay, someone's asking about Apple and Macs. Well, we are using the PC. Unfortunately, the tool I'm giving you, Power Query, is not in Mac. It's only in PC. You have Power Pivot and Power Query. Now, if you guys look at my screen, I have, this is Excel 2016. Now, in 2016, this new tool called Power Query has been integrated inside the Data tab. So in the Data tab, you have a section called Get and Transform. So if you look at where I'm highlighting right now, this is Get and Transform. That is the new section for Power Query. In 2013, you can download it free. Once you download Power Query, you would see it as a tab. Just a tab up here, you see Power Query. Yeah, in 2010 too, you download and see Power Query. So let's try and clean this up. The first thing I'll do in cleaning this up is to identify what are the fields that I should have based on my 7 golden rules. If you look at it, I have North Central, Northeast, Northwest, Southeast. I guess that is region. So I'm just typing a small plan here. That is your region. So I have a field called region. This second row here is copier, sales, parts, printer sales. So I guess for North Central, these are 4 products that they sell. Northeast, 4 products that they sell. So I guess there's another field called products. Then I have another field here. This years. So these years can qualify as dates. Let me just call it dates. And then, of course, we have our sales amount. So technically, these are the only 4 fields I should see in a table. So my clean table should have 4 columns, not this ugly thing we're looking at. The clean table should have 4 columns. How do we now convert this to have these 4 columns? If you want to use normal Excel for this, it will be quite tedious. The very first thing you probably need to do if you want to use Excel is highlight your data, copy it. Yeah? Once you copy it, you go to a new sheet, and the very first thing, because you have 2 rows of headings, the very first thing we need to do is transpose. So I'm going to paste special values transpose. All right? And click OK. So that's the first step. Then this is all manual. I don't want to do this manually because probably I will do this every month, for example. So transpose, the next step is we need to populate all these empty cells. So like North Central needs to be populated down here. Northeast needs to, all this is quite manual, very, very manual. Then I need to change this heading to region. Then I need to change this heading to product. Then all of this data here needs to be twisted. And usually, and all these empty cells that I have here, all these empty cells I have here are supposed to be maybe 0. I'm going to populate all these empty cells with 0. And to do that in Excel, I do Control G. Control G is a go-to shortcut. Control G, I go to special, I go to blanks. So Control G, special, blanks, and then I say OK, and then I type 0. And if I want 0 to appear everywhere that is blank, I do Control Enter. So that's 0 everywhere. Now, this is just the steps for cleaning up manually in Excel. There's quite a lot of things to do, a lot of steps, lots of steps to follow, which is quite tedious and quite pretty much annoying. So I'm going to do all these steps eventually and get to this plan. Remember our plan? Our plan is we need to have the data. We need to have the data looking as control. I mean, we need region, product, date, and amount, sales amount. So I'm going to use Power Query for this. I'm closing this exercise. We're going to use Power Query. So here we're going to write our first query. How we do that is we come to data, and we're going to write a query. From where are we getting this data? So from my query, I need to get the data from file, as I'm going to get the data from Excel. I know it's somewhere in my system in Excel. Okay, so let me quickly get the path so that we can be faster. So I'll come here, go to file, and then go to from workbook. So from workbook, I can then go and look for the file itself. I think it's inside here, Power Query demo. So I have a file called dirty data samples. So I'm connecting to it. Guess what? This is Power Query connecting to an Excel file, which is the source of our data. Power Query can connect to any other thing. It can connect to SQL Server. In fact, it has 60 connections. Excel is just one. You can connect to 60 different data sources. All right. So if you look at it, Power Query is saying, okay, this dirty data sample workbook has 3 sheets. Which one do you want? I want dirty 1. So dirty 1, you can see Power Query is giving us a view of dirty 1. Now what I need to do is to edit. I click on edit. Once I click on edit, it's going to open the Power Query application, because this is a separate application. It's going to open the Power Query application for me. And in opening the Power Query application, I can now use Power Query to clean this data up. And the nice thing about Power Query is this. Once I clean the data up with Power Query, I've automated the cleanup process. Next week, I don't ever need to clean this data again. It will automatically clean it for me. Now, there are certain things in Power Query. Power Query has, if you look to the right, here, you see there's a source. It has navigated and brought the source in, and all these things are steps. These are the Power Query steps, the steps that Power Query applies. So every single thing you do to clean up this data will be recorded as a step. And the nice thing is you can use this later. That means you can use this recording later. So best practice usually is to delete change type. What does change type mean? What it means is, if you look at our Power Query interface, I have Home tab, Transform tab, Add Column tab, and a View tab. This is not Excel. This is a tool that works with Excel. And this is a tool that will clean our data automatically for us and feed it to Excel. Once fed to Excel, we can now automate our reporting. So Home is where all your main buttons are to help you clean your data. If you remember how we did this thing manually, we did it manually by transforming or transposing. So guess what? I can go to transform here, and you'll see a button here called transpose. So all I need to do is click that button, and the entire thing has been transposed, just like we did in Excel, just one button. And you can look at the step to the right. It has transposed table. Next step is, if you look at it, I need to promote these headers. If you see, I've transposed now. This 2000, 2001, 2002, 2003 is actually supposed to be a heading. So I'm going to promote this first row to become a heading. I do that by going to Home, and you see Use First Row as Headers. If I click that, it promotes these two headings. And then now my column 1 and column 2, I can rename it to, column 1 can be called region. Column 2 can be called product. Right. Another thing I would like to do is, if you look at North Central, this North Central should be repeated down. Northeast should be repeated down. All this should be filled down. What I can do is highlight this column called region, right? And simply go to transform again. And then if you look at it, I need to fill down. You will see fill. Can you see fill? You click fill and you say fill down. It automatically populates it correctly. Next step, all of these things we see here, if you remember our plan was region, product, date. We need a column for dates. You remember my 7 golden rules says that all dates must be in a single column. And then we have amount. So we need 4 columns. So what should happen is we're going to unpivot this data here. So what you do is you highlight these 2 columns and tell Power Query, all of this other data here, unpivot it. You do that by coming to unpivot columns. Click on the drop down and say unpivot other columns. Once you click that, it twists your data. See that? It has twisted my data, unpivoted it. This data is now clean. Guess what? Every single thing we do in Power Query is being recorded. Now, if this is something you do every day, guess what? You've automated that process. You never need to do this again. It's automated. Now, no matter how complicated your data is, you go through all the steps and clean it. This is just a simple one, for example. So now I have region, product, attribute, and then value. Next step for you to do is rename your columns and make sure the data types are correct. So if I come to a region, I go to home. What data type do I have? If you look up, I have a column here called data type under transform. I right click it, and I say, okay, the data type for region should be text. Now these are the data types in Power Query. Decimal number is a column, a decimal number is a column, a currency column is a column, a whole number column is a column, a date column, a time column. Well, this column is a text column. Then this other column, second column here, is a text column. This column here should be a, well, it should be a number column, whole number column for the year. This column here should be a decimal number column for the amounts. So once this is all done and we're clean, all we need to do is load it into Excel. So all I need to do is click on this, close and load, and it now populates into Excel. So look at what's going to happen. It's going to go into Excel and fill out. So this is my new clean data from the dirty data. And guess what? This is my query. This is the query I have just written, this one here. I can right click it and go to edit. It's gone back to Power Query. And let me show you the code you have generated. If I go to view in Power Query, if I go to view, you would see advanced editor. So my advanced editor shows you the code which we just generated. So this is the Power Query code. With this Power Query code, I can do all sorts of analysis. So this Power Query code is automated. So these are like the steps. This is called M, by the way. The language is called M. So this is the M code. I can now run this code automatically. For example, let's assume you've given somebody to do this work. All you need to do is send the guy this M code. Now, once I send the guy this M code, I'm coming back to Excel. Let's pretend I'm going to a new sheet and nobody has done a query before. So he needs to pull that data clean. All he needs to do is go to Power Query or go to Data. He just needs to go to Data. Under New Query, he will go to From Other Sources and he will choose a blank query. He's going to choose a blank query. Once he clicks the blank query, this is now Power Query open blank. Nothing in there. We have not connected to anything. So this is a blank Power Query. He just needs to go to View, Advanced Editor. Under Advanced Editor, you will see the M code. You delete what's there, paste what you just created, and click on what? Done. Remember, there's nothing here at all. I've just pasted code, click done, and it has gone, pulled your data, cleaned your data, twisted it, controlled it, and everything is ready for you to use in your report and automated. So that's the power of Power Query. Extremely powerful, bringing in data. Now I'm going to show you, just before, I will let anyone ask any questions before I continue, and then I'll show you how to consolidate lots and lots and lots of data. Let's assume you have Excel files from 2010 to date, monthly Excel files from 2010 to date, or monthly data from 2010 to date. You want to consolidate it. That's the next thing we're going to do. So any questions, just put your hands up if you want to ask any questions, and then I can release your mic for you, and then we can move on. Anybody have any questions? Any questions before we move on? Okay, a lot of us are very quiet. They don't want to ask questions. Don't be shy. Just ask questions before I move on to the next automation. Okay, good. Ezenwa again wants to ask. Ezenwa.
Okay, my question is, this particular demonstration went and pulled the data, the same data that we have used. What if you sent it to someone with within the Power Query, and you want him to apply it on a different set of data and not the same data?
Yeah, if it's a different set of data, as long as the structure is the same. Do you get? As long as the structure is the same. Because normally when you download data from, let's say, SAP and all those kind of stuff, it's usually the same structure. Of course, the data may be for January, another one will be for February, but the structure is the same.
Yes.
Once the structure is the same, the code will work perfectly.
Okay.
Once the structure is the same. So, for example, now what I want to do now is, while you're still on the line, where I'm going to pull data from a database. Now, how we should work normally, let me just show you one folder here. How the best practice for working is, when you get data from SAP, let's assume SAP or your database administrator sends you data every week or every month. Stop saving it in Excel. Don't save the data in Excel. Ask your administrator that, please make sure you send me this data in a flat file format. And what I mean by that is a format that follows the 7 rules. Those 7 rules are shared. And then tell him to give you as a text file. So once he gives you as a text file, drop all those text files into a folder. So if you look at this folder I have here, I have April, and this April, I've just opened this April data so you see what it is. This is the April data. It's a text file. So we've downloaded from our software. We have a text file, and these are the fields inside the text file. Region, market, trade date, fiscal period, model, line of business, days and period, blah, blah, blah. This is your text file, right? That is text file for April, then for May, then for June, then for July. And we're in the month of November now, right? So if November comes along, download that text file, dump it in here. Once you dump it in here, we're now going to use Power Query to automate the consolidation process. So Power Query will automate the consolidation process and give Excel an up-to-date database. And that database will be live. It will be live. It will continue to kind of grow automatically. And because it's growing automatically, your report is updated automatically. So we're going to demo that right now. So let me just quickly demo that. Let me create a new Excel workbook. And I said we need 3 sheets. So, sorry for putting you on the spot as well. What are the 3 sheets we said we need?
You need the data sheet, the control sheet, and the report sheet.
Okay, excellent. So super. So that's what I'm doing now. I'm creating data, control, and report. Excellent. So now for our data, what we want to do is use Power Query to connect to that folder that contains all our data. And anytime we have new data, we're going to be dropping it into that folder, and Power Query will update automatically. So that's the trick. So when I go to data, I'm going to go to a new query. Now, this is 2016's Power Query. In 2013, you have a tab called Power Query. It does exactly the same thing. But in 2016, they added it into Excel directly. So new query, I'll go to from file, and then I'll go to from folder. Can you see all the ways you can connect to Power Query?
Yes.
from databases, from Azure. Azure is the cloud, Microsoft Cloud, from other sources, Dynamics CRM, all sorts of sources, combine queries together. There are plenty sources. So I'm just going to go to from file and then from folder. So once I get to from folder, I now need to navigate to where that folder I showed you is. Okay, so let me quickly navigate to where it is. Somewhere hidden on my system. Let me quickly navigate. Okay, resources, Power Query demo. Oh, all right. So I've navigated. This is where I have it up, Power Query demo, all actual data. All right. So this is me. This is the folder. Click OK. So this is the path to the folder, and I say OK. So what Power Query is doing right now is connecting to that folder. Once it connects to that folder, it brings this dialog box up. It says, okay, I've connected to the folder. These are all the things in that folder. Now, you could have 100 files in this folder. But guess what? How we currently work, or most people currently work, is these will be sheets. These will be sheets in an Excel workbook. It will be Jan, Feb, March. That is the wrongest way to work. That is so inefficient, because now when someone wants to do same period last year analysis, you have to copy, paste, copy, paste, copy, paste, copy, paste. And you tell your boss it will take you 4 hours when it should take 10 seconds. Okay. Anyway, so this is your data. So you tell Power Query, let's edit this data.
Okay.
So Power Query application is opening now. Again, guys, this is a free tool from Microsoft. It's completely free. So now you have your familiar Power Query. Now the trick is this. All of this data that we have, I want to combine it into one single table that follows my 7 rules. Okay. Do we get it?
Okay.
Yeah? So the key thing is this. If you look at this, think about your data. Your April data will have a heading and then the data, isn't it?
Yes.
Your May data will also have a heading and the data. So if I'm combining it, if you think about it, that means I'm going to combine plenty headings, which is not very good, because everything is going to be stacked on top of each other. So we just have to note that, so that when we're cleaning our data, we know to remove duplicated headings.
Okay.
So if you're combining from a folder, you see this button here. This button is the magic button that combines. So this tiny button here, I just double click it. I double click it and it combines all my data. That's how easy it is. So what this has done, it has gone to that folder and combined all the 100 text files I have, combined all of them, right? Okay. And here we have it here. Now the only thing I need to now do is to ensure that my data is all nice and clean. So for example, under region, if I click on the drop down for region, I'm going to click on load more so that I can see all the fields in region. Once I click load more, you'll see something that is foreign there. What is foreign?
Region.
Exactly. So I have to, that is the repeated headings. So I have to untick it and say, okay, so this is me doing a Power Query. See, I'm cleaning my data. And guess what? I just need to clean this once. Next month, when I have new data, all I need to do is dump it into that folder and everything works automatically. Yes. That's how powerful this is. So the only other extra work you need to do is, from my experience, dates are treated very poorly. Dates are kind of complex in Excel. When you have a date, unfortunately, some computers' dates are English US, some computers' dates are English UK, and if you don't know what your computer is, your dates could be messed up in your system. So what I tend to do when it comes to dates is I tend to not accept Power Query's data type, as in, you see change type here. I don't want Power Query to change my data type. It should leave the data type as it is. Then I will programmatically change it. I'm going a bit advanced here. I'm going to use M code, because right now, when I brought this data from the data source, if you look at the dates are what? Are they MDY or DMY? What do you think the dates are?
DMY.
Exactly. See, the dates are DMY, right? So since the dates are DMY, we need to tell Power Query that, hey, This date is DMY. Please convert it to a valid date. And unfortunately, there's no quick option here that says, hey, when the date is DMY, convert it to a valid date. We need to be able to write M code ourselves. So I'm going to write M code. It's a bit advanced. So I'm going to go to add column, and I'm going to add a new column. In adding a new column, it's going to bring a dialog box. It says, okay, you're adding a new column. I'm going to call this my column date, right?
Okay.
Now, the M code I'm going to write here, if you go online to Google and type Power Query language, you will see some articles, or you see a very detailed booklet that I can download on all the codes about M. So what I'm going to do here, I already know the M code is going to be date.fromText. M code is case sensitive. So I'm writing my M code. I'm saying I want to take a date that is from text, which is currently called trade date. And I want to tell you, Power Query, that this trade date is currently formatted as English Great Britain. Now, this is a very specific M code. So I'm telling it that I want to construct a date that is going to use trade date, which is currently English Great Britain, and I want you to convert it from text to a date. That's the code. So I now click OK. It's going to create a new column. So that new column, can you see it here? The new column has been created, and this is the valid correct date. Power Query has created the correct date. I can drag this date maybe to the first column. I've created the correct date. So Ezenwa, I know I put you on the spot, so thank you for joining and just continue the webinar. Thanks, Ezenwa. Okay, so I put the correct date up. Now I have my date. Can you see the steps being recorded here? So now the next step for me is to make sure the data types are all okay. Remember, you only need to do this once, and then forever your report will be 100% automated. So I'm just going to highlight this column. I highlight this column and I say, okay, the data type should be a date data type. Then this column, the data type should be text, it's text. This column, the data type should be text, which is already text. So I'm just checking each column and checking what data types each column is. Now, remember, trade date was used to create this date. We don't need this column anymore. So I'm going to remove the column. I'm removing this trade date column. Fiscal period, well, text data type is fine. Model, text data type is fine. Line of business, text data type is fine. Days in the period, I think, is a number, so I'm going to change the data type to a decimal number. Revenue, again, it shouldn't be text. I'm going to change the data type to decimal number. Units sold, I guess it should be a whole number, so I'm going to change the data type to a whole number. So now I've cleaned out my data. Everything seems perfect. Now I can load. So I'm going to go to close and load, and then I'm going to go to it's close and load to. I'm going to go to close and load to, and here you have an option. Remember, this is Power Query. Now, the way to work in modern Excel is when you're working with a table, you have the option to work with it in Excel directly, or you could send it to something called a data model. A data model is Power Pivot. Can you see this up here? Power Pivot. Power Pivot is an extremely powerful tool. And I think Victor asked this question about how to use Power Pivot. This is how to use it. You ask Power Query to get the data, then you connect it to your data model. But we'll probably do our next webinar on detailed Power Pivot, but we're not doing that. We're concentrating more on Power Query. So what I'm going to do is just send it to a table in Excel, all right? Now, you could also connect to it. If I click on Only Create Connection, what that means is that Power Query is going to be floating somewhere, and I'll just connect to Power Query. I won't bring it into Excel. I'll just connect to the data directly. But what I want is I want to see the data in Excel. So I'm going to put table, and then I'm going to say drop it in the existing worksheet. So we've done all this query, we load. So once I'm loaded, just have a look. It's going to start dropping it in here. So Power Query is doing its thing, bringing the data, and it has brought the data in. So our data is now in Excel. And guess what? This is a live connection, completely live. Now I can do my reporting. Okay, I can do my reporting. So let me quickly create a very tiny report and let's see how powerful this is. I'm going to go to Control. For my report, I need a start date and an end date. So start date and an end date. So let me just put a start date and an end date. I'm going to put a custom code. That's just a quick format for how to put a custom code. Let's say I want my report from 23rd of maybe July 2011 to 31 December 2011. All right. Oops, sorry. So this is the report I want to create. I want to report from 23rd of July 2011 to 31 December 2011. Just to make it nice, I'm going to name this as my start. I'm going to name that cell as start, and I'm going to name this cell as end. So guess what? This is my control sheet. So this is the two things that are going to control my report. So I can now go to my report sheet and just design a report. Let's say we do a regional report, region, and then I want to know what my sales are. And just for argument's sake, let's see start and end, so the user knows what report he is making. Is start and end. Okay. So start and end. Let me create a custom code for that. DMMMYYY. All this is formatting, really. It's just formatting. I'm just linking so the user knows what start date and end date he is creating a report for. So that's what I need. I need my region and my sales. So I need to get all the regions that I have here. I'm going to pull out all the regions. So I can quickly do that by doing a trick in Excel where you highlight all the items you want and you go to report, and then I'm going to paste special values, and I'm going to go to data and remove duplicates. So once I remove duplicates, you will see the unique list of regions for this report. So these are my unique list of regions. Bring this here. So now I need to get sales. So the sales I need is this. I need sales for North Central that is between 23rd of July 2011 and 31 December 2011. That's what I need in here automatically, right? To do that, I need to use a function called SUMIFS. So once I type SUMIFS, the best practice is you tab, then you do Control A. So this is SUMIFS. Now, SUMIFS is a very powerful tool. It just says, I want to sum something if a condition or a criteria is met. For us, we have three criteria. Look at the three criteria we have. We have that thing where summing must be North Central. That thing where summing must be after 23rd of July 2011. And it must be before 31st of December 2011. Three conditions. So I go to sum range and I go to data. And I highlight revenue here. Okay. So I go to data and then I click on, you remember data is our automated data table. I click revenue, this top here, revenue. You see it shows all actual data revenue. That's what it's called. Then my criteria range. What criteria am I using? Technically, this is my first criteria. This is my first criteria, North Central. The criteria is North Central. Where should I pick North Central from? I go to criteria range and I go back to data and I select the column that will contain all those North Central things, which is all actual data region. The next criteria I want is all the dates that are greater than or equal to start date. So how you write that in Excel is this. Greater than equal to, you put them in double quotes. Greater than or equal to is a text. It's kind of, you can qualify as text. But dates in Excel are actually numbers. So you say greater than or equal to in double quotes and put your and sign, and then you pull the name of the start date. I think we called it start. I can press F3 to bring out all the names I've defined. Select start and say OK. So this is the syntax. Greater than or equal to and start. This means greater than or equal to start. This is the number that represents that date in Excel. So where should I get this greater than or equal to start date? You go to criteria range, then you go to data, you highlight date. So you can see a figure already here. These are all the North Central revenue greater than or equal to start date. But we also need to restrict the ending. Our criteria for ending should be less than or equal to end date. End date. End date, press F3, we called it end. So where are we getting this less than or equal to end date? The criteria range is in data, this column. So guess what? We've basically created, we're summing all of this where the region is North Central, where the date is greater than or equal to start date, and the date is also less than or equal to end date. We click OK, and you have your figure in here. I can make the figure look all nice by going to custom and making it a million format. These are all simple advanced formatting in Excel. So this is a million format, making it 2 commas. And then I double click this, I come here to total, and I do an alt equals to, which is a shortcut for summation. And guess what? I have a beautiful report. And this beautiful report is dynamic. How is it dynamic? It's dynamic in the sense that I can come here to control, I as the administrator, and change this to 1 Jan 2011. By changing this first date to 1 Jan 2011, if I go to my report, it has updated. Can you see that? It's updated, right? And the nice beauty of this is also that your data is live. This data is live. So since it's live, it means that if I go to my data source, remember that data source I had? Let me open it. Let me open that data source. So where I had my data, where Power Query was querying, you know, Power Query was querying a data source, a folder with data. So that folder with data, you can decide that, do you know what, I've just finished November. I need to include November in this report. And look at how easy it's going to be to do that. So look at our data source, all actual data. Let me pretend that, can you see November 2011 here? Okay, I'm opening this live data. I can see November and where is December? I'm going to delete this November. I'm deleting November. I can delete this November. I'll delete. Yes. Let me see. Where's December? December. Okay, look at December 2011. So I've deleted November and December. I'm pretending I didn't have them. Let's come back to our report. I'm going to change this report to 1st of November 2011 to 31st November. Remember, we haven't refreshed. This data was there before. So if I come here, you will see your report is 1st November 2011 to 31st December 2011. Look at it here. But you remember I deleted it in the original folder. Now I'm going to tell Power Query, hey, Power Query, I want you to refresh. So I right click, I refresh. Look up to the right. You can see Power Query has pulled 41,000 rows. When I refresh, Power Query is pulling and pulling. Now it has pulled what? It has only pulled 37,712. This is just refresh. All I did was refresh. Okay? And all you will need to do is download your data from IT, dump it into that folder, and refresh. So if I go back to report, guess what? Nothing is showing. Nothing is showing because there is no data. So let's pretend I go to IT. I say, hey, IT, please give me data for November and December. So IT gives me November and December. I copy it, which I have saved as a text file. I go to Power Query Demo. I go to all actual data where I'm dumping my data, and I paste it. Guess what? I've now pasted November and December into this folder, right? Now I go back to my Excel. I open it where I had my query. I refresh my query. Query is gone into that folder and it's pulling data and pulling data. And now if I go to my report, automatically it's updated. This is the power of Power Query. This is the power of automating your reports. And there is so much more you can do with this tool. It's just that we don't have enough time. So I'm just going to close this tool. But this is the power of Power Query. Anyone have last questions? I know it was a bit long for this Power Query demo. Anybody have questions? Just put your hands up or type in the question in the question box. Let's see. Any questions? So ask any questions, anybody. Put your hands up for any questions. Alex is asking a question. Is Alex there? Alex, are you there? Okay, Alex is not there. Who else is asking questions? Okay, so let me quickly get back to our slides and then we close. Let me just see how many we were able to answer. How many of these topics were we able to answer? So our plan today was data consolidation with Power Query. We did that. Dashboards that show HR metrics. I can quickly show you a trick that will do that. Power Pivot setup and use. Power Pivot setup and use is you set up Power Query first. Once you clean up your data, you feed it to Power Pivot. But Power Pivot is a bit of a different animal. It's very interesting. It connects different data sources and it uses DAX. We'll probably talk about that later. Intelligent and visual reporting. We've done some pretty intelligent reporting here. The visualizations is more charts. For example, if I look at this data source, I can easily highlight like this. And let me give you a quick shortcut. Alt F1. Alt F1 just pulls out a chart, right? So Alt F1 pulls out a chart, and when you change your start date and your end date, your chart updates. So that's a nice quick visual for you. And let me quickly do the dashboard one. With this visual, the way to create a dashboard is quite simple actually, very simple. How you create a dashboard is you first of all create all your reports, then you create a new sheet and call it dashboard. And in that new sheet, you kind of make it look like a one-page sheet. Most times I go to page layout and I just, maybe my orientation should be landscape. I go to view and say, give me a page layout view. So now I have a sheet that looks like a page, right? So I have a sheet that looks like a page. And all you need to do is once you create all your reports, you take pictures of your report. So you highlight your report and take a snapshot of your report. And once you take the live snapshot, you paste it in your dashboard, and that's how you create dashboards. How do you take a live picture? Unfortunately, you don't have a camera here. You need to go to File. You go to Options, and then you go to Quick Access Toolbar. And once you go to File, Options, Quick Access Toolbar, you now go to Commands Not in the Ribbon. Commands Not in the Ribbon. Then you go and look for Camera. This, by the way, all of these are things Excel can do that you have no idea Excel could do. So we go down to Camera, and then we add Camera. Once you add your camera and say OK, you now have a camera tool here, which means I can highlight, take a picture, come to my dashboard sheet, and click. Once I click, this is a picture. I can arrange it. I can go back to report. Now, if you click on your chart, it won't take a picture because your chart is not Excel. This Excel is cells. Excel is made of cells, not objects. So your chart, you can't take a picture, but there's a trick. You go behind the chart in Excel. Look at where I am. I'm going behind the chart. I'm highlighting behind the chart. So if you know picture bombing, when you jump in front of someone is trying to take a picture and you jump in front of him, that's what we're doing now. So highlight behind Excel and then you click. So you're taking a picture of Excel, but guess what? The chart is in front. And then you go to dashboard and you click. Can you see this? So this is how you create a dashboard. You just take pictures of your different charts, tables, and arrange them, and you have a dashboard. So the methodology in summary is this. Get your data using Power Query. Automate that getting data process using Power Query. Connect it, clean it, automate it. So next time, it's just a matter of refresh. Have a control sheet that controls how your user uses your report. Create your reports using best practices, which is fully automated. One of the best functions is some ifs. Then you can create your dashboard by taking pictures of your various reports and putting it in a sheet. Taking live pictures using the camera tool. So this is your best practice for working with Excel. And I hope everybody enjoyed listening. I would like the maybe final word from someone in the audience, so to say. Who would like to give us a final chat or final talk? Was this helpful? Let me know. If this was helpful, just put your hands up. If you think this was helpful and you can go and explore, okay, you can see some hands up. That's pretty good. So just to see that we're attentive, let me just ask a very quick question. Now, before you did this webinar, how many of these tools were you using before you did this webinar? Before you started this webinar, how many of them did you know? How many have you used? Which ones have you used before attending this webinar? Power Pivot, Power Query, Power View, Power Max, DAX, and M. These are all modern Excel tools. Which one have you used before? Remember, Power Pivot is different from Pivot Table. It's not Pivot Table. Power Pivot is different from Pivot Table. So which of these have you used before? Power Pivot, Power Query, Power View, Power Maps. Okay, quite a few of us have used, okay. It seems more people joined us later and they are quite advanced guys. They've used Power Pivot. 30% have used Power Query, 10% have used Power View, 20% have used DAX. Excellent. All right, so super. So watch out for the videos for this webinar on our YouTube channel. And again, as we said, we have a special offer for you. Anyone that attended this webinar, you're entitled to 30% discount on our courses. So we can watch out for that as well. So I'll just leave this slide up and thank you very much for attending this webinar. Please take advantage of our discount and take advantage of our online courses as well as our live courses. And we'll see you in the next webinar. You can use the same link you used to register for this webinar for the next one. And happy to see you in the next webinar. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, everybody. And see you later. Bye.